Okay guys, welcome to the 2023 Kia Niro Hybrid Touring SX. It's pretty much the highest specification Kia Niro Hybrid you can get. And like I said, in my full review, if you do want to go check that out, you can get a Niro Hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or full EV in this latest generation. So there's a lot of options you can get. So let's take a quick look on the X series before we go take this thing on a drive, because I think it looks really, really cool. This one's finished in Cityscape Green with a kind of two-tone finish here. So we have this big black C-pillar, and I'm thankful that Kia did not put like just matte black plastic out here. I kind of like the actual kind of glossy black plastic. I think it works with this design, and I love this Cityscape green color. It's really, really cool, funky, stands out. It's better than just your typical black and whites. You have your full LED lights up front, you have LED fog lights down there as well. I like these little daytime running lamps. This one also is getting you 18-inch wheels as part of this kind of SX touring package. You also get power folding mirrors, kind of like nice metal look, bright work accents. And one of my favorite features of this whole car actually is this kind of like flying buttress here, because this actually has a passive air passage through this entire C-pillar and exits right here. It's kind of hard to kind of see on camera, but you can look directly straight through there, which is pretty cool. The rear end, I really love this as well. I love these kind of like boomerang style vertical taillights, and you also have a massive top third brake light. Your turn signals and reversing lights are in that lower bumper area with this kind of like cladding right there. I think it's a really cool looking little hatchback crossover type vehicle. I wouldn't call it an SUV, even though Kia's website does call it that. Nonetheless, it's a pretty wonderful little daily commuter. It's a good competitor to the Toyota Prius, even the Ford Escape Hybrid, if you want to kind of put it up against that. Let's hop inside and take this thing on the drive though. Okay, so now that we are on, and we can just simply put it into gear. Now we have a 6-speed dual clutch automatic gearbox here. It's I think it's a wet dual clutch, so it's a little bit of a different gearbox. Not the biggest fan of it. We'll get into that when we start driving. You do have a manual mode here. You also have paddle shifters that both can control the gears as well as your regenerative braking, depending which drive mode you're in. So that's pretty cool of a feature. I love this regular style shifter. I'm not a fan of the new dial. You do have a reversing camera, which is okay. I wouldn't call it the best quality thing on the planet. It does have trajectory though, and you do have parking sensors as well. I wish there was a little bit of a higher resolution camera for $36,000, but it's okay. I also have noticed that this mirror does rattle a little bit, and I've noticed that if you go over some harder bumps, it will actually like shake itself into a different position. So that's one little weird quality thing I've noticed over the week. Same thing goes with the seat. It does rattle a little bit over some bumps. I've noticed the whole thing like shaking and making some noise. So not sure if that's just like this very used press car, but just one thing I've noticed over the course of driving it this week. And let's head off. So normally when you start the Niro Hybrid, you're pretty much always going to be in like a little bit of an electric drive mode. And I really have had fun kind of playing with the hybrid system over this past week. Now, of course, it's just a regular hybrid, so there's no plug you have to plug it in. So it just kind of just charges itself either via the engine or through regenerative braking, which is really cool to kind of control, especially in eco mode. Now, this thing does not have a lot of power. It's 139 horsepower, I think over 190 pound-feet of torque. That's mostly thanks to the electric motor providing all that low-end instant torque. 18-inch wheels, Continental tire. Oh boy. You know, you're not going to be winning any races in this thing, but that's not the point of it. It is a commuter vehicle, and I think as that, as especially in an urban environment, I would not particularly want this in kind of like a more if you have a really long commute. But if you're just like commuting back and forth from work in like a very urban environment, a lot of traffic, a lot of stopping and going, this thing is fantastic, especially with this highway driving assist, which I'll get to in a little bit. Now, this powertrain, let's talk about this for a second. It's a 1.6 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder paired with like, I think a few electric motors actually all combined up there, all front wheel drive only. And I think the chassis is pretty solid for what it is. It's one of the more refined chassis I've felt from Kia. I'm not the biggest fan of the chassis in the Telluride, for example. I think it felt a little bit cheap. The EV platform on the eGMP with the EV6 is pretty good, but this is one of the more mainstream vehicles, and it feels pretty solid. The steering feels a little bit more refined than what I felt in previous Kias as well. Again, nothing sporty in any way or form. There's no enjoyment or driver engagement, no really feel in that steering but nonetheless, it's fine for what it is, and it doesn't feel like cheap anymore. Though the Prius, for example, the new one, completely destroys this thing in any kind of like driving dynamics. So if you want that and really favor that, I would just go for the Prius. But this one, it's pretty cool, especially with the amount of storage you get in the back and the kind of space you can fit people back there. I think it's a cool blend for like a kind of daily hybrid commuter vehicle. And it is very fuel efficient as well, and that's big thanks to this powertrain. So I've been averaging around 45.3 miles to the gallon over 411 miles. I've been driving this. I just did a road trip, well, I guess it's a little bit of a long drive, 30 plus miles, and I got around 55 miles to the gallon over that trip, which is insane. And I really love that Kia allows you to see the hybrid battery charge level as well as your fuel gauge right there. That's kind of cool. And you also can play around with these little center screens and a few different stuff in there. You can see your kind of powertrain distribution of where all the energy is flowing throughout. I think that's really cool. And let me just demonstrate these paddles. So we're in the eco mode right now. You have eco and sport mode, but we're going to focus on eco mode real quick. And essentially what eco mode is doing for you is that you can use these paddle shifters to adjust regenerative braking, which is really cool for just a regular hybrid. So I can go left and you see level 1 there, put level 2, level 3, and you're going to feel that force from that regen braking as there's more of that regenerative action coming from those electric motors up front. So that's kind of cool. Though what I really love is that if you hold down this left paddle, and let's say if you time it right, I can come to a full stop without touching the brake. So if you hold it, you'll see it goes max auto, and I can come to a full stop, and it actually will completely stop the vehicle and put the brakes on, and almost like an auto hold function, which you do have right there, which is really fun. I've been kind of playing it around, getting the timing right, and having some fun with it. So that's one way you kind of feel engaged with this vehicle. Otherwise, it's pretty numb. I mean, if that's fine, just a daily commuter car, I think that's okay. Generally else in here, it's pretty quiet on the highway. You can definitely tell though, once you get up to like 70, 65 miles an hour or more typical highway speeds, it is gonna get a little bit loud. You do hear some wind noise, some tire noise, and some road noise, but generally pretty quiet and composed. Like I said, it's more of an urban style vehicle. Pop it into sport mode real quick. The steering weight's up in a very artificial manner, just a little bit. The throttle is a little bit more sensitive, and the engine's gonna stay on more to get you more power. And when it is on, it's not the best sounding thing on the planet, and you really do gotta wind it out to kind of get up to speed. But once you're at speed, you kind of just stick around there. It's nothing too bad. I never really have been in sport mode at all while driving this. I've actually quite enjoyed using it just in eco mode. I think it's been perfectly fine. Though don't really rely on eco mode if you really do need that kind of more acceleration in the instant. And also I don't actually like the steering in sport mode. It feels almost like a bumper car style steering wheel, just in the feel of it. It feels very video gamey, but that's why I just usually leave it in eco mode, and it kind of feels a little bit more normal to drive. Though now that we are on the highway, I can show you Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis is absolutely fantastic driver assistance system. This one has called their HDA, or Highway Driving Assist. It doesn't have automatic lane changing, but it pretty much has everything else. So all I have to do is press this button, and we're on. That's it. Now you're supposed to keep your hands on the wheel, though I have noticed that Hyundai and Kia systems just go on for a really long time before they start warning you to put your hands on the wheel. I think that's kind of a little bit dangerous. Those more advanced systems really should have a kind of a sensor up there to track your eyes, but that one does not have this. And you are able to kind of turn on and off that lane keeping assist function with the button right here, so it can just use regular cruise control or have this full kind of highway driving assist. And it will come to a complete stop if you're in traffic, and continue off going if traffic keeps moving. So that's fantastic. So you really don't have to keep your foot on the brake and the gas as much if you're on like in the stop and go traffic situations. And it's really cool if you want to just pick up and go and stop in traffic. You just press this little plus button up and it'll just keep going, which is really cool. So yeah, it's a nice, very, very nice system. And when you do change lanes, as all of these systems do, it will kind of deactivate the steering assist, so it can kind of merge you into the next lane, and you just go off on your way. And it really does work well. It's fantastic in traffic. I just used it on this road trip I was just on, and oh, it is a lifesaver, I can tell you that. I've also been playing with that regen braking, going around corners too, is not using the brakes. So I'll just like go around. If I feel like I need a brake, I'll just hold the paddle down. You can feel yourself coming to a stop. It's pretty cool. And now, talking about this chassis really quick, now I like how they use a multi-link rear suspension on this Kia Niro. It feels a little bit better to me versus than some other more cheaper kind of torsion beam suspensions. I think that helps the vehicle feel a little bit more controlled and planted. You have a little bit more kind of like control yourself when you're kind of going around corners, especially since this is a front-wheel drive only vehicle. You don't have power being distributed back there. So I think I liked it. It feels okay. Again, nothing sporty whatsoever, but for what it is, it's not bad. Now we do have Apple CarPlay. Unfortunately, and this is an issue across all Honda and Kias, it's not wireless. So you have to use not a USB-C, but a regular USB-A charging cord to put your phone in. And I think the problem with that is that it charges really slow, and it's just annoying to keep doing. All these new cars, and a lot of cars in this price range and cheaper, have wireless CarPlay and or wireless Android Auto, or are using a USB-C at least. This is a little bit disappointing, and I really hope they can finally change this at some point, because it's been a while that I feel like we've all been complaining about it. Nonetheless, it works pretty fine, and you know, just to have Apple CarPlay on. And this infotainment system stock is not bad actually at all. I really don't have any complaints with it, but it is nice to just have Apple CarPlay running on there. Now, you don't have any kind of heads-up display or any kind of advanced gauges over here, so you're not going to really see like a lot of navigation stuff up here, though you will be able to see some music information and stuff in this little center display here, which is the only kind of adjustable display you have. Nonetheless, that's pretty much it. Some other little complaints in here, I just want to get up to like 75-ish miles an hour on this highway, so you can just hear the kind of sound that's happening in this interior. Again, it's nothing too bad. It's felt a little bit worse than some other vehicles such as Subarus. I think it's a little bit louder in those vehicles, kind of on the highway. That may be due to like a beefier tire. These are kind of small wheels and tires on this car, so that could be aiding into the reduced sound from the exterior environment, but you definitely can hear a lot of wind noise going around the exterior. I do like that little ambient lighting strip, and like you said, you can change it through the infotainment system, though it does take a whole bunch of clicks and beeps to get into there after a little bit of time. Now, one other complaint while driving, these seats, again, they aren't the most comfortable thing on the planet. I just think there's not enough support in the lower section, and I wish there was a little bit more control over the lumbar support, and the material doesn't feel super premium at all. It does feel a little bit cheaper of a material, so I wish they did offer like maybe a more premium synthetic material or synthetic leather, or even a leather option for some people that did want it, because these just feel a little bit plasticky and a little bit rubbery for my taste. Though I do actually really appreciate this ventilated seat option. They work fantastically. Really get cold quickly too, and Hyundai and Kias, I don't know what they do with their heated steering wheel seats, but they get so hot so fast that I don't even have to keep it on that long if I want it on, and the whole steering wheel does heat up, which is fantastic. I do like that as well. But yeah, guys, this thing can just keep going and going and going. In total range, you can get around like 500 plus miles of driving range if you drive this thing really efficiently, which is really fantastic. You're really gonna be saving a lot of money on fuel with this car, and I think that's its real highlight here. And there are just scenarios on the highway, like a lot of these hybrids do, where you're just coasting and it completely shuts the engine off. You can see right there, and you're just driving and coasting around in electric mode, saving all of that gas money, which is wonderful for me. And on occasion, you will notice a little bit of some tire squeal when you're coming off the line. And I think that's just because of that instant torque from those electric motors when you just get off and go. It does have a lot of torque, this thing, almost 200 pound-feet of torque, which is impressive. And that does make it feel a little bit quicker than the horsepower number may kind of say to you, but you definitely do notice that lower horsepower figure once you try to get up into like higher speeds or accelerate onto an on-ramp on a highway. You do feel that lack of power just a little bit. Again, you do have auto brake hold as well, a wonderful feature on modern vehicles. But yeah, guys, this is a really basic, easy to use vehicle. There really isn't like a steep learning curve with anything in here. So if you really just want to get in the vehicle, don't worry about it, just drive to and from work and save money on gas, and you don't want a Prius, this is a fantastic option. I would definitely consider looking at it. And it does come at a much cheaper price point with this powertrain than this fully loaded $36,000 SX Touring package. You can go all the way down, I believe, in like $26,000, $27,000 and still get this package. And I think those smaller wheels might even get you even better fuel economy than these larger 18-inch ones. But like, you know, cruising around on some side roads at lower speeds, this thing is just super comfortable. I have to say the suspension tuning is actually really good on this. It soaks up bumps pretty well. I don't ever feel like it's like really harsh in the cabin or you're getting a lot of vibrations and stuff in here. Really well tuned on that, so I have to kind of applaud Kia for that. And of course there is that 10-year 100,000 mile powertrain limited warranty that you can have pretty much every new Honda, Kia and Genesis product, which is a little bit of a peace of mind going forward. Though I will say Toyota's hybrid systems are pretty much the most solid things on the market still to this day. Hyundai has also been doing, and Kia have been doing their hybrids for a little bit of time now, and they've been getting better and better. Though the Niro, I think, is actually one of the most reliable vehicles that I think Kia is making right now. I know the last generation one, people really did like them, and they were doing pretty well in terms of sales. So hopefully this will continue that with this kind of fresh design, fresh tech, and still continued great efficiency. Now, one thing I do want to point out though is that I have noticed some lurchiness, specifically with this 6-speed dual clutch. You have to remember, a dual clutch doesn't really operate as a normal automatic gearbox does. So you may experience some of that like lurchiness coming off a line sometimes, especially when you're in the sport mode and the engine's always on and you're not having that kind of electric motor to assist you. I don't really like that, and I know some customers don't like that because they actually got rid of this gearbox on the new Kia Seltos. They changed it to a torque converter, I believe 8-speed automatic gearbox, because people were complaining about the old dual clutch. So I'm not sure why they chose to do this. I guess they kind of went with this over a continuously variable transmission just because there's a lot of stigma against those, and they're like, oh yeah, wow, fancy dual clutch on a hybrid, pretty cool. But you know, normally it's a very smooth powertrain, though like I said, if you're operating it in sport mode or the engine's kind of kicking in more to kind of charge the battery, you may notice a little bit of that lurchiness. And you will, if you're on it, you will feel those gear changes kind of happen, and there's a little bit of some motion related to that. Nonetheless, it's not the biggest issue whatsoever, but it is something that I have noticed while driving this thing. But yeah, guys, this is the 2023 Kia Niro, and like I said, wonderful commuter car. And if you aren't a fan of the Prius and you do want something a little bit more spacious, a little bit more SUV looking, this is a fantastic replacement. Especially if you had like a old Prius V or a Prius C or something, I would definitely look at one of these. And of course, like, there is a plug-in hybrid option as well as a full EV option as well. A little taste of that engine. You know, it's not loud and raspy, but it doesn't have the best sound either. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining me on this full tour review of this Kia Niro. And of course, as always, stay tuned for a lot more coming soon from Allcarnews. Cheers.